Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome to this live stream. I have no idea if this is working as I expected to. Things are chaotic here, as they often are, but today I think they're particularly chaotic because I've moved into a new space. If you have seen behind me here, you can see lots of new stuff. I'm in a new office space. We can chat about that during the show today. We can chat about all sorts of fun stuff. I have a guest who I've kind of screwed over for the show because they're going to join me, but in the last 2 minutes there, I was trying to figure some program audio for them, program video for them, and I failed miserably at that. So I'm going to see what I can do during the show to make that work as well. We can talk about whatever pops up in the chat. If you have a question or comment, just let me know in the chat. Try to include here to record in that as well, if you can, so I can see it nice and clear here on the iPad, which I have sort of very clumsily sitting in front of me here. But let me just launch straight into who I have with me today on the show. I have Jonas, who's back to chit-chat with us about all sorts of fun stuff. So Jonas, hopefully you can hear and see me just fine. Yes or no?
I can hear you, and I mean, it's a big improvement from last stream where I basically had Frozen John for the whole of the show. So I think we're off to a good start. I don't have program, but I have you, so that's all that matters. And
Good.
I also just realized that my wear for today is really bad for any live stream because tomorrow is just killing me, at least in Zoom. But
yeah, that is your punishment for not having the no program return is your punishment for not having a good shirt on. Let me know that you can hear and see Jonas just fine as well on this little super source window that I threw together in the last possible minute as well. It is a day of last possible minutes. And Jonas, I just realized that since we're in Zoom together, you can actually see program just over my shoulder there.
Oh yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. I should just like zoom in there and I'll be fine.
I don't know what the big problem is. So that's what we're gonna do today. Yes, colorful Jonas is here loud and clear, which is excellent. Happy to hear that you can see and hear Jonas just fine. All right, so we are going to launch into just general chit chat. Actually, the first thing though I wanted to chat with Jonas about, because I haven't actually seen you or talked much to you in the last month or so, is I saw that you launched something called InfoBee, and I'm hoping that you can give me a quick little rundown of what it is before I send the link into the chat here. So do that for me.
So obviously, since we were just last minute, I just realized this might not work as planned. But the idea is often you get sent any files from your client and you kind of don't know what's wrong with them and what format they're in, because sometimes I like to right click and go to all the settings and look at all the details, but sometimes they're wrong because they come from metadata and not from the actual file. So I built this little app here where you can drop any file in. And it seems to be working today. So that's a great start. Obviously, John knows the drill. I always run some development build within live shows because now nothing is more fun than breaking things live. So you'll see general stuff like the duration of the clip. You'll see all the stuff that I can pull out of the video codec. You'll see the audio stuff. So it will show you channel layout. One of the cool things is for waveform, it will actually show you every channel. So if you do multi-channel work or if you do work that relies on left and right panning, you can check it in there. And then there's here these 3 little checkers in here that try to figure out the most common problems with your video. So like someone forgot to unmute in a recording. This will show you if there's a silence for more than a couple seconds. So obviously you see here in the waveform, there's a big hole here. We also see that in here, and then it can also detect black frames. So just if anything, like sometimes it happens with Resolve or other project, other NLEs that you miss out on a file and then suddenly it's gone and you can't render it and then it's just black. And the other really cool thing is that I added is it detects freeze frames. So if a frame stays still, it will detect it. This is very cool for like QC of video files. But what we started actually doing is you can automate your whole testing of stuff. Because like in the live streaming world, we always like to burn in stuff. but that's not actually helpful if you're not watching the feed and making sure that at the end of your system you get a functioning feed. So what you can do with this is you send a functioning feed in and then record it at the end. And then at the end, after 5 hours, you throw it into InfoBee. It will take a little bit. InfoBee is really not like to share because as soon as you run it, it will take whatever resources you have and grab them all. It doesn't really care about other programs, so don't run it during a live show like I just did. That's not a great idea. And it will tell you if there's like frozen frames, audio drops, and all that. And then it tells you the timestamp. So then you can look into like, oh, at 5 hours, we suddenly had a dropout. We lost the transmission for X amount of minutes. That's how we use it as well. And it was an internal tool for a while. And we opened it up to open alpha. And this is an alpha version because what we really wanted to do is get feedback on what people need from a clip. Like, what do you want to know about it? What do you need? All those sorts of things.
Cool. I think one of the things that I will definitely use it for is the black frames and extended silences. I've been given videos like seconds before going live, and there's just no time, or well, maybe not seconds, but an amount of time before live where you can't actually watch back everything. In fact, once during a stream, I was given a video file, and I only really had time to skip through and watch short segments of it just to see like what is this? Is it still working as you expect it to? And I just happened to click at exactly the middle part where there was a tiny little part of an interview, and the export from that failed because they needed to quickly export it again for the show. And what we realized right then was like there was a 10 to 20 second gap where a short interview was just completely cut out. And there's no way I would have actually noticed that other than just I happened to click through in whatever QuickTime and just noticed that part, no one's talking here. What's going on? So
yeah,
it was purely by accident that I noticed. But in theory, I would just drop it in there, take a look at this, and see. Well, surely there should be audio in that center part. And luckily, I knew the editor enough to tell them, please export another version. They had no idea what happened, and this happens all the time with these kind of last-minute exports, right?
Yeah, like I mean, we both probably got some live stream stories to tell. Where like during the live stream you suddenly like need to make a change, and I had stuff redelivered during a live stream once, and like there's no way to watch it back mostly. So that's where it's really cool. It's automated QC, so obviously it can't look out for like unsharp images or something like that, but just for like technical errors, we'll also include like a little checkbox if it like, hey, we'll think this will run great on these playout systems. And then obviously someday we want to tie it all back together. So you have your whole workflow pipeline of your QC and playout all together.
That's really nice. I think that'll be really nice to have for people. And this, would you consider, I think it says on the site there, is it in beta or alpha right now? Which one do you have it as?
So it's only alpha because we want to get more input. So we like can learn a little more about what other people need because it's very specific where our needs are for a testing tool like this. But also it's not like within your pipeline. Like that's what makes this product a little more easy for us to work on. If this crashes, there's not like your stream goes down. Like with PlayoutBee, if that crashes, that's pretty bad. That should never happen. This tool is still tested, and I haven't seen a single crash yet reported. But still, it's in alpha, so use with caution. But since it's not part of your signal chain per se, we don't worry about it too much. And I mean, obviously, we check that it doesn't do anything weird to your files, so delete your files. That's not something that it's gonna do. But yeah, just from the information that we want to surface, like that's really where the community is great. Like, give us input of like, do you need laughs? Do you need what else information do you need to make a educated guess? Mostly because like more you can't do if you can't really watch it. Make a good decision on is this video good or do you need to move on and drop it.
Exactly. Oh, that's cool. So I'm excited to see InfoBee grow some more. I throw a link in the chat there, and I can add it as well to the description of this video after the fact. If I was more prepared, I would have done that already, I'm sure. Okay, I've got questions coming in here. I'll save that one for later. Okay, here's one. Well, it's not really a question, more of a comment. It's totally my fault. Go Web Technology says, audio is a bit out of sync for Jonas. And that is something we definitely would have tested before this show, if it wasn't for the fact that I was trying to fix many other things. Both of my computers crashed before we went live, right?
I mean, it's literally like 30 seconds out, and Jonas sitting back there because I was crazy enough to be like, hey, would you mind like doing an ISO record? And I mean, I'm a horrible guest. I also asked him for additional things, and just now he probably realized that he didn't click record.
I did. I was just terrified that I didn't press it. But yeah. So in the background there, you can't quite see it, but in fact, let me just come to my camera here. You can see there's an ATEM SDI Pro ISO sitting there. So Jonas, for some reason, which is probably a good reason, thought that we could get an ISO feed of me, him. The super source is the third one, and then program is the fourth one I've set up. So I set that up before the show. I was building, this is what I really love about SDI cables and building your own. I was building 4 of them out in the corridor earlier, bringing them in here, and then plugging them into that ATEM so that I could actually do this record. I didn't have enough, but building your own means that you can just create a few more. One of the many things I did before the show to make Jonas's audio out of sync, right? But I did press record on it, so apologies. I did do that. That much I could achieve.
So, but we don't know what it's recording, right? So
yeah, so
it's a little bit of a surprise at the end of the show.
I think this is where the gremlins took over for this live stream. As soon as I connected that ATEM to the network, and I launched the ATEM software control, everything just freaked out, and I had to restart all of the devices, and I unplugged that. I can't say for sure it was that ATEM, but there's something to do with that ATEM anyway. So it's not connected to any computer, therefore I couldn't tell if ISO record was on. I think it was. The last video I posted was me and Alex doing that collaboration about the CloudPod and Cloud Store, and for that video I did ISO record on that ATEM. The question is, do you have to save startup state to get that ISO record working?
I mean, you probably do. It's
right?
Like magic.
So
but I'm always so confused with like, you turn everything off and it turns back on, and you're like, that's kind of what I saved, but like not really. And then like annoying things like the 2ME HD actually not saving images.
Yeah.
Which is like fine, I guess, but like now I have to restore that. So one of the things like that really, me needing to work with the 2ME HD really helped me get motivated to add picture support to PlayoutBee, because I was like, I can't stand uploading everything again. Well, I need to fix it myself then. Kind of like the programmer's mindset. It is. Well, screw you. You didn't fix it for me. Let me fix it myself. And yeah.
The only option. I'll fix it myself. So I can come to how we have this all set up today, and I think that'll explain why your audio is a bit out of sync. But again, my problem. And why your video is flashing from time to time. But again, that may be my computer's problem, because it also freaked out before we went live today. I have a question here from InfoBee. Does InfoBee detect a sudden peak in a peak or low in audio in video? So can you detect like when something's suddenly really loud or really quiet?
So I'm looking into peak detection, but especially this distortion detection, and like but audio, like always, is more complicated than video for some reason. So it's really hard to like generalize from like data, generalize anything. But what it will detect if it goes low, like in the upcoming version, you will be able to like select what it needs to go below for it to alert you about it. And then it will let you tell like, hey, here, this is silence. Silence is not like really silence, because like only a perfect system ever would be silent. So there's like a little bit of a margin. If it drops below a certain dB level, it will alert you to it.
Got it. Okay. But I guess any suggestions that pop in during the live stream is something we can, or let me rephrase that. If you have any ideas on the app, going in through Discord or ByteHive's Discord would be a good way to give those things back. Sometimes it's just something you haven't thought about yet, or you're thinking about and you haven't added yet. So do so. Question from Peter here. Thinking about downloading PlayoutBee, don't know if I'll go Mac or Raspberry Pi. But before I do, is it possible to add new videos on the fly from an external source / other computer?
So yes, that is one of the great things about PlayoutBee, if I say so myself. It is all built around the web interface, because from the Raspberry Pi perspective out, I really did not have the I don't wanted to mess with the Pi to upload a video. So like, if I got to this again, you see here's a list of clips, and I can at all time add one and then play it. But the cool thing is, since it's a web interface, you can also like, I sometimes pull it up on my phone to like upload something I got sent over WhatsApp because it's an emergency and you kind of need that file now. Or one of the really cool things, and John and I have been looking into Cloudflare tunnels a lot for like remote control stuff and making that work with our apps. It's like, you can just start a Cloudflare tunnel, which like connects it out to a domain, and then everyone in the world could upload something to you. So for remote contribution, it's a great workflow, and we've used it a lot to that, like over VPNs, everything over the network. It's just an HTTP upload. So yeah, and actually there's a live stream on my channel where I did a little bit of a live coding lab where we built a little script that all it does, it checks if a folder gets a new file, and if it gets, it uploads it to PlayoutBee. And that also can work anywhere in the world, and PlayoutBee can be anywhere. It's, yeah, that is really one of the advantages. And since it is not as critical about your file format as a hyperdeck is, and can play most H.264 files, especially on Mac and Windows, the support is way better just because I have more hardware power that I can put in to support it. You'll be fine. Like, you could even switch from like a 640 image to like a 1080p to a 4K back to a 720p. It doesn't care about resolution or like frame rate. Obviously, if you want a perfect result, you need to make sure your whole chain is into like 30 FPS or 25 FPS. But PlayoutBee is not going to be like, well, this is really not ideal. It's like, let's make it work, because that's all Playout is mostly about. Like, you can't tell people like, sorry, you really 5 weeks ago when you shot that clip, you really should have used a different frame rate because now it's not working. No, you have to make it work now. So that's kind of the mindset that PlayoutBee has in mind.
That's a good mindset. I like that. I like that very much. Let's see. So questions coming in here. I'll save that one. I've got one here. How did you put today's show together? Digital Creation 2012 wants to know, which feeds into our audio issue, I believe, and Jonas's video is also glitching from time to time. We can talk about all of this right now, how this show is getting put together.
With a lot of duct tape.
With a lot of duct tape. That is absolutely true. So I'm decided, why not test out something that I've never used before live on a live stream, having downloaded it yesterday. That's the recipe for success. I am sure of that. But actually, it's not anything against the app at all. It's against my inability to do enough tests of it. But this is a perfect test. So what I'm using today to make this all happen is I have ZoomISO version 2 running on my MacBook right here off screen. Again, it decided, the Mac, before I got ZoomISO working, the Mac decided to crash today. So you can tell I'm off to a bad start with the computer at that point. But it's been working well enough since then, I think. So the idea there is that ZoomISO joins the call, and with some permissions, it's able to grab individual audio and video from participants within that call. And in this case, I just have one, really. I mean, there are a few people in the call as well. The channel members are in there hanging out as well, watching the show. Well, what they can see of the show, again, no program return. Still working on it. But so that's the setup on my computer here. So I'm grabbing Jonas's audio and video via ZoomISO. And then from there, I'm able to connect a UltraStudio HD, which is on the floor right now. Another recipe for disaster. I haven't kicked the cable yet. And that's grabbing his video and sending it into my video system. And then the audio is also coming out of the computer and into the audio system in front of me. So there are a few steps involved there. What I didn't do And there was a good reason for this. I'm sending the video and audio separately from ZoomISO. Now, in theory, to keep sync, I was hoping to send them both through the UltraStudio. So the video would come out of ZoomISO, and then the audio would also come out of ZoomISO via SDI into my switcher. But I wanted to be able to hear Jonas separately, so I had to separate the two signals, and I think that's where the sync issue is getting involved. And unfortunately, the only place that I have to correct sync right now in my setup is in the ATEM software control, and I'm sending all the audio in via the jacks on the back, so I can't really adjust the two of us independently. So if my audio is as much out of sync as Jonas's is, then I can adjust them both and fix them both at the same time, but I highly doubt that right now.
I gave mine a couple more frames of delay, so we'll see if that fixes it. Yeah, and like, I mean, I don't know, we both were kind of unlucky today. And I think that's kind of also the great thing of this live stream, that we can mess around with tech and not have to worry about all the things. So yeah, I also am on a new mic that I haven't like fully synced yet. My sound chain is completely broken right now because Zoom decided to no longer work with my MixPre 3. So my MixPre 3 actually goes into my ATEM Mini Extreme, which then goes into the PC, which might also like add a little bit of lag. Yeah, so maybe those 3 frames helped a little bit, but
seems good now. Lindhagen was saying here, which is good. And actually, that's a good point. Yes, sync seems good now, which is excellent. So you were able to fix it on your end, which saves me from fixing it on my end. But one of the things that one of the frames of mind that I want to change in my head is like a live show can crumble on this channel, but whenever I'm working for someone else, obviously the live show shouldn't crumble, right? And so I appreciate Jonas taking the risk and letting it crumble with him. But I'm quite okay if, you know, ZoomISO, whatever tool I use, does not run well on my computer, or if the internet goes down during my live stream. You know, I can live with that. And I like the idea of testing stuff out and seeing how well it works live. This is something you and I talk about all the time, Jonas, is like you can use all these tools all day long. Yesterday I was testing it, obviously, just to see how it actually worked, and it worked just fine, and I got used to it. But until you run a live show and realize, oh, but hold on, I need to get your audio, because I had the audio set up differently yesterday, and it worked. It was already in sync. But I realized today I need to get your audio in my headphones, and I also need to get it into the ATEM as well, which are 2 separate chains for me. And you don't realize that until you're actually running it live. So it's quite fun to test this stuff out. And then if you add complexity of like, I don't know, next time we might have 3 guests or 12 guests. Is it up to 12 video feeds? Is that
well, so right now you would probably get around 4. There's a really interesting thing that we've saw in testing, because we were like, yeah, let's get 6 outputs because let's try it. Why not? Right now, there's a bandwidth limit on how much a single strand can pull, and it's around 24 Mbit. A Zoom feed pull is between 4 to 6 Mbit, 1080p feed. So you can pull 4 feeds for sure with those up to 6 Mbits, because it's limited at 6 Mbits. So right now you can pull 4 feeds. But in the middle of October, we don't know when yet. Right now, it takes a little bit. Zoom is rolling out a whole huge update to the whole of its cloud infrastructure that allows us to pull 100 Mbit feed down, which in my mind is already like pretty crazy, because like for all those people that actually like work in IT and like use cloud, it's kind of crazy that they allow us to pull that much data through the data centers down, because they still have to pay for data and all that. And honestly, I don't even know how they make it financially work, but it's amazing. So then you're really limited to your CPU at that point.
That's really impressive, actually. If they're going to do that, I'm quite interested. I mean, my computer shouldn't have a problem, but it has been having some funky problems recently. It is a fairly 1-year-old MacBook Pro M1, so these issues it saw today. Well, last week, every time I opened the lid, it would restart. So I would stop closing the lid on this MacBook. So I mean, I think my issues are
yeah, that sounds like
Yeah.
Now, about one really like cool thing with ZoomISO, but also like for me a little bit sad because we can't get it to work on Windows as easily or at all, is ZoomISO really takes advantage of this new chip architecture where you have like all these different transcoders and all the different like. So one of the cool things with ZoomISO, let's start there, is even if I send John a 360p image, he would still be able to upconvert it to 1080p. And Zoom ISO also, if you are 25 FPS and John says he wants 30, it will correct it to 30. So that way, it's really cool for your production system, because what we don't want in a production world is like change. So just because you drive through a tunnel, if you do like a live contribution and you drop to 360, we don't want like all our production chain now to be like, oh, that changed, we need to redo it. So what Zoom actually does is they added this normalization layer where whatever comes in goes out to whatever you want it to go out to. So John could say, I want Jonas only in 720p or in 1080p or in 360p 20. You can set all of that up, and Zoom will make sure that exactly that is what you're getting out. And I've been running lots of tests, and it's really amazing. There's this view from ZoomISO where it shows you like what it gets in and what it's out, and it's really cool. It works really well.
That is really cool. Yeah, I'm keen to play with it a lot more. So speaking of playing with things, I just realized in the background just now. Let's see how this goes. If things fall apart, I'm gonna have to revoke your program feed. But I just realized in the background that I can send you a program feed over Zoom because I set up my Pearl Nano to just today, just so I could test some stuff out. So it's over there, and you're still here, which is good. And what I'm doing right now is I'm SRTing from that Pearl Nano to my vMix computer, which is the same computer that's running the Zoom call right now. And I'm hoping that, I know this is not very exciting for the viewers out there, but they'll see the excitement in your face if this works.
If your internet holds up and we just like, this is not just the last sentence that you just said. But.
I really hope not. It's not looking good so far, though, is it?
Well, I'm getting EV with some SMPTE bars.
Progress.
And if you look on your program feed, that looks a little like something happened a little.
Something happened there, right?
Might have a little loop there.
Oh no. Wait, let me fix that. This is fun.
I move my hand. Maybe you can still see it now. There we go.
This is why you should draw a line between how much testing you do live. I like this visual feedback. Thanks, Grant. Thanks for.
Well, it was a small art performance that we did because we really wanted to bring a little art in here, and I hope you liked it.
I hope you liked it. You obviously didn't. Okay, I'm gonna screw my testing and just stick with. You're gonna have to live with that too. That's so weird though. I don't know why that happened. Well, I'll have to troubleshoot that later.
Maybe like the first show is the charm, and I'll get like program you and all that, and yeah.
I expected the first show of this new space to not go great, but this is hilarious. What happened? LOL. Very arty, says Spike. Thanks for that. Yeah, I can't wait to after the live show to figure out what the heck just happened there.
Yeah.
Let me see. I've got another question here, and maybe Jonas, you can help me with this one a little bit. What are your thoughts on integrating dedicated software services on a platform like Isodora? What are your thoughts on integrating dedicated software services on a platform like that?
So one of the things that I'll try to do is like stick within good known standards. And like John and I, we both really much profit off our tools using web development protocols. Like the amount of remote stuff that I was able to do with PlayoutBee without changing a single line of code is still astonishing to me. So I really, really enjoy like building on top of solid industries protocols and using them in a way that is still close enough to their origin. Because if you go too close to an edge, then obviously there's like some live streams like this where we could try something, and if it fails, it fails. But a lot of the stuff that we do also is like stuff that really can't fail. So we try to stay away from the edge, at least a kilometer or so, just to make sure that we don't even touch the bleeding edge. But I think the right way to do it is probably to ensure that you have a protocol that both programs speak, then try to teach both programs to talk to each other. For example, for those that are coming from office hours, we're in office hours 2.0. We have a bunch of programs talking to each other over OSC into Isodora. For example, we have a tally system now that I built there that works all over the world, that gives the panelist a green and red tally. That works by Isodora making a call to my server, and my server taking it from there. So it's really cool to implement services like that. And John got return view working. How amazing. It's still frozen, but we'll get there. But I think implementing dedicated services into there makes sense. But I would still like try to keep to a common protocol that will ensure its portability, because you also don't want to put all your bets into one horse.
I was totally listening to every word you said while I prepared a return for you. I
assumed so.
Okay, so troubleshooting. What I did wrong. Okay, everybody ready for this? I could do with the drawing tool right now. I don't have one set up. Of course I don't. So the arty style that you all very loved, or you loved very much. It's like an old video toaster effect. What I did was I have vMix running, and I'm sending my graphics out via vMix. And for some reason, I decided to send that SRT out of that same output. So it's overlaid on top of this video. So of course, that's why we were in an infinite video toaster effect. But I realized that now. So here's how I'm getting programmed back to Jonas, okay? I've got a Pearl Nano connected behind me up to the program output of the switcher. So far, everything sounds great, right? It's super easy. That Pearl Nano is then SRTing in the network to vMix. And then vMix is NDIing to NDI virtual webcam, which is then connected into Zoom and giving Jonas a return feed. And I think you seem happier now.
I totally, I've never been this happy. I get like a multi-view. Now it even works, it even has like a acceptable frame rate and all that.
Okay, good. That's
We're getting there. Just normally your show would end now and you would go into the post job.
It's a good job we stopped that, isn't it? The other thing you can't see off screen is, or maybe you can. Oh yeah, you can. Look, there's a ATEM Mini Extreme setting right there. That was the easy fix. I had that set up whenever the clock was running at 3 minutes. Between the 3 minute and 1 minute countdown, I set up that ATEM Mini Extreme, which has a program feed coming into it, is connected to this PC, but the USB cable wasn't working. So, thus the issues we had. Alrighty, that's that then. Thanks for watching it. No. Lindhager says, 2 complicated solutions, question mark? Yeah, exactly. Whenever you're live streaming at the same time, the easy methods of solving fall apart. And actually, there's about 13 different ways I can fix, or I could have fixed this much easier, but all of them require me to stand up and go find a cable, like a USB cable or a SDI cable. This was the current only way I could think of fixing it. The other challenge is that everything is on the other side of the room. Like most of the gear is on the other side of the room, and the computer is on this side of the room. So everything requires a long cable to solve. Here's a question. Juan wants to know benefits over VDO.ninja or OBS.ninja. I suppose we're comparing that to the solution that we have today, which is ZoomISO. I personally have, and I know that me and Ryan should make a second season of Return Feed where we explored all of these options, and we talked about ZoomISO during that, but it's made plenty of changes since then, so we should do that again. But one of the main reasons I think that I would choose ZoomISO over VDO.ninja these days is just the participants' ability to join a meeting. So what you can do for them is just send them a Zoom link, which I'm sure that I'm fairly confident that they've already joined hundreds of times by now, and they know where to click on things. They know how to mute and unmute themselves. Hopefully by now, there's a lot of familiarity there that is really hard to start from scratch with something like VDO.ninja, even though it seems to work very well. I think Zoom has really made a name for itself, of course. We've all used it at this point, or many of us, I'm going to say most of us, let's just say, have used it. If you've joined a call before, there's a good chance it was something like Zoom that did that. So using ZoomISO on my end is not a huge lift for me because I can just create the meeting as I normally would. I can send that to all the participants. We can test all of the connections in the normal standard Zoom client. And then when the time comes, we can flip it over to ZoomISO. And another big pro of the ZoomISO experience, I think these days, is that since ZoomISO, the developers of that were purchased or bought out or incorporated into Zoom. I'm not sure what the exact term is at this point. I have no idea what I'm talking about. But anyway, they work as part of the Zoom umbrella now. They're Zoom employees. Then you can expect that nice close relationship with the Zoom video and audio pushing around side of things. And they're able to get, I'm imagining that they pushed pretty heavily for what you talked about earlier, Jonas, which was the really
the high bandwidth
quality
mode.
Exactly. So I picture them internally being the ones or on the queue of people that were poking the right people to get that high bandwidth mode. Any thoughts on ZoomISO versus VDO.ninja, Jonas?
So it's interesting because like at the start of the pandemic, a lot of the discussions were about the tech. Like, where can I get a 1080p feed? Where is it 720p? How can I get it out? Where can I get a clean aperture? Where do I have screen debris? What we then realized is it's not really a good show. Starts with the tech, but then really continues if your speakers are comfortable and all your panel guests. And one of the things that we noticed is like sending them to a website like VDO.ninja often really made them like, okay, so you want me to click on my browser, now allow it to like access my things, and it tells me like it now can record me and all that makes them uncomfortable. What we want to have them do is like, hey, join this Zoom meeting and we'll take care of you. Like, there's nothing else you have to worry about. You just have a conversation on Zoom like you have every single day. That's kind of how we see it. So like, it's more from like you said it. It puts the speaker at ease. They're like, I know this, I'm familiar with this, let's do this. So that is what I really prefer about Zoom. And then obviously the server-based nature that VDO.ninja actually tries to not have, that Zoom has, makes it easier to work in complex environments and complex networks. So what I mean by that is like, if you have someone join from a corporate network, VDO.ninja might take a heavier lift to get working than Zoom, because that's really where Zoom shines, in these complex net environments where you have like a firewall and all that. One of the things that's interesting that we are doing from time to time is actually have people join over the web client instead of the native client. But if you join over the native client, it also has more access to resources and isn't bound to like whatever your browser decides that is good. Like, I mean, Chrome at some point decided, no, we don't want autoplay anymore, which is annoying. Then they decide, hey, you only can have like X amount of video elements. And then they decide this and that. And Safari decides to, oh yeah, this API, you don't need that anymore. We'll just disable it. So like, that's where a desktop application can attach to the hardware more easily often.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, like everything, there's pros and cons for both options, right? And if either one of them lets you down during a show at some point, you lose your trust in that one. If people are familiar with using another one, you lose your trust, or you get your trust in that one. It is much more difficult than most things.
And what I would also say is like, Zoom is amazing. Like, Zoom's encoding is really built up around faces and nature or biological objects. And you notice that if you have a really, really low bandwidth connection, it doesn't do the macro blocking. It has like swirls, because that looks more nature, like in a gallery feed that looks still more like nature, because like a human isn't a block. It's like a lot of curves. So that's where Zoom's algorithms really shine, because they are able to implement this custom logic, versus VDO.ninja has more like the standard VP9, AV1, VP8. they also have the advantages, because if you use Zoom for something that Zoom is not intended for, like one of the things that we have seen, a teleprompter. If you try to do a teleprompter over Zoom, Zoom is like, well, what's this? Like the encode is not really sure, like, hey, what's this? Why do we need to have like text going up and down? Where's a face? Give me a face, please. So that's where VDO.ninja is really cool, because it just encodes it. It's fine with it. That's where VDO.ninja is a little better at.
Yeah, I think so too. We have a few clarifications here. Eric says acquired by Zoom. Very good. Thank you for that, Eric. Grant says totally agree. I prefer complexity on my end, simplify on the guest end. Exactly. Zoom is familiar to most people. And then Lucas coming in with, is there an excuse for the dismal UI design? I suspect you're talking about Zoom, or maybe you're talking about VDO. Maybe both.
I thought about if he's talking about like your scene, because you're like a really dark scene today. But it's actually interesting that we like. I guess it's like it's broadcasters. I've opened up one software now. I was like, this looks so nicely built. Is this even for broadcast anymore? And then of course it was from graphics people that are doing like motion graphics, so it makes sense that it looked nice. A lot of engineers like to focus on the functions versus the UI. You all wouldn't even want to see PlayoutBee before John and I started working on the UI together. And yeah, so I definitely can understand that. And one other question that was asked earlier was like, you're using an UltraStudio, John, not a DeckLink, right?
Correct.
So what is interesting, because they implemented the DeckLink SDK, that you can still use an UltraStudio, because some people would think like those are different brands. But an UltraStudio really is a DeckLink, but outboard that uses Thunderbolt 3 or 4. I think they only use 3 or 2 actually for the connectivity. And it just looks like a DeckLink to the PC. So I haven't done it myself, but John, when you try to select it, it just showed up as one of the options, or what had you do to make it work?
Exactly. Actually, I just wanted to launch into a little ZoomISO demo here. If I can show that to you now. So I have it running here on my Mac. I just double checked to make sure there was no Zoom call details in here. I don't think there is. Maybe they keep them well hidden. But here is the app running on my Mac. It is Mac only, it is Mac only right now, and I suspect for the future. I believe that they're
with how well they integrate, especially like they ZoomISO for this normalization layer that I mentioned, that like brings my feed from 25 FPS, because I know that I only send in 25 into Zoom, to the 30 that John wants. There's this layer that uses all the hardware encoders and transcoders on the chips for Mac. So they use a lot of the Mac hardware SDKs. So yeah, I don't see them publishing ZoomISO for Windows.
It's a bit like asking. Wait, I found the wrong button. There we go. It's a bit like asking the vMix team to add a Mac version of vMix. It's just like we've done so much effort here to get this to work as best we possibly can on PC.
And you often find that with like these really high power tools, like when you want to build something really great that goes like down to the chip and does low level stuff, like you'll see the latency of ZoomISO is really like dropped as well, because they try to like minimize that by having less process, making sure they don't copy the frame buffer around too much. And as soon as you like optimize too much there, suddenly you have the issue of like, hey, now I optimize for the Mac chip. Everything that I just optimized for doesn't exist on Windows. What do we do next? So now you need to build, like if you want it to work on a similar code base, now you need to build your own translation layer and add overhead again. And I understand that a team like Zoom really likes to push forward with ZoomISO, and then other tools like Zoom Rooms and Zoom Rooms NDI will follow a suit. And it's like ZoomISO is the leader that runs a front, might get dinged a little because they run against the wall a bit too fast, and then they remove the wall or build a tunnel in there, and then everyone can get through. So ZoomISO really is like this lighthouse that is shining everyone to the right way, but don't see them building it for Windows.
No, me neither. And it's the same issue as me making H2R graphics for, or you for your apps for all platforms, building them through Electron. Same problem, the opposite direction. We want it to work across, but maybe it's not as performant on any of them. If I built it as a Mac-only app for H2R graphics, maybe I could go deep into the performance of that. And then the first question is, where's the Windows version? So it's like a decision you make at some point, and it either comes back to haunt you or it doesn't. But let me just launch into this because I realize I can fix something that's been bugging me now. So this is ZoomISO, and I only have this one Zoom participant, which is Jonas here. You can see, and it's coming out via the UltraStudio. So everything just pops up here. NDI, Siphon, the built-in screen on my computer. This black magic is one of the micro converters that are attached to my computer, or the UltraStudio HD Mini, which is also attached via Thunderbolt. I can choose resolution as well in here. I chose 1080p 30, although I do have 60 in my whole system here, but I just went for 30 because I got a little bit creeped out whenever the computer was freaking out there earlier. And you can see it's running, just under 30, pushing out that FPS, which is perfectly fine for me. I did have an option up here, which I realize now might help me a lot. Every once in a while, Jonas's frame does go black because, well, who knows? I need to figure out what's happening there. But in theory, I could just change that to freeze, I suppose. And
if I now disable my camera.
Okay, let me just go back to you. Okay, good. So now he's frozen instead of...
Now enable it again. Let's see if it comes back again.
If it didn't, we'd be...
There we go. So now I'm back again.
Welcome back.
And if I disable it again, I'll freeze in a horrible pose. So
it makes me very nervous when you do that.
That's what you get for testing live.
Exactly. So, I mean, it is as simple as that to get the video pushed out via my ZoomISO here. And then the audio, I've also, like I said earlier, I split this in a different direction. So I do have a Scarlett Solo. That's probably what the audio issues are, if there are any. The good old Scarletts give us all headaches sometimes. But I'm sending the audio out via that, which is also connected to my laptop via USB. And I'm just sending his participant audio, Jonas's only, out via the that Scarlett into the device in front of me here. So there's a bunch of stuff.
Use that tab as well to send it to the DeckLinks, because what you could do is like where it says audio device, you select the DeckLink, and then you can put all the channels on there. And one of the small little tricks that I learned is on channel 2, John, if you can select the auth so we can show the different modes real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this output mode, which then allows you to select like output 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, if you have 9 outputs. Because what it then does, the audio is from the person that you pinned on that output. Because right now, what John had to do is like select me for the audio specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So now even if you pin someone else in the Zoom call, it would still be my audio because he set it to my participant. That can trip you up in production sometimes if you think like, I have that person here and repinned them in the outputs, but now their audio is still on the other channel. So just that's a little tip that we found helps a lot.
That's a good one. I'm happy to know that, because I do want to use this for these kind of shows. One of the things I've sort of been against whenever adding callers to this show in the past, whether that be just yourself, Jonas, or multiple people when we do a few brainstorm things and like that, I'm kind of against the notion of bringing in their audio and video via SRT or via the ATEM streaming bridge and mixing that all in the ATEM, because while it does give you very good quality, clean video, you end up listening to them on a back channel call like Zoom, and when you watch the final product, everybody looks and sounds great, but they're all talking over each other slightly. And for me, I'm more than happy just to slow the show down a bit, put some latency between us, and just do it all via Zoom or via vMix call, which is even more latency prone than Zoom. So to be able to grab the Zoom individual people and then use a DeckLink, which I do have a DeckLink card on my PC over there, or just this UltraStudio, since there's only 2 of us right now, it's perfect. So I can get this running. And I think that given some more tests and live streams here, I can make it look and sound even better, more in sync, less glitches. So I'm happy so far.
And I think one of the things that through your return feed, was it called return feed?
Yeah.
through the return feed and me producing one of the brainstorms where we actually did use SRT and Zoom as like a two-pronged approach to like one is where you communicate, the other one is where we produce the show. You really need a producer at that point. And right now, there's only me and John in this call, plus a couple people that are watching us. There's not like a producer that is cutting the show. So then it gets really confusing because now John and I come both in over latency and you need to like delay your cuts. Doesn't say we not like maybe experiment with that in a while and like set up our pearls to be like a bidirectional link from our studio so I can send the video feeds and you can send me stuff back as an experiment. But that's where you really like reach the limit of like what one person can do. But yeah, I think it's working pretty good today.
Yeah.
For how less time we had to set everything up.
Yeah, I mean, I spent like the better part of this morning setting up all the pieces here, but we did spend 30 minutes before, or the last 45 minutes or so before the show, like actually dialing it in, and that's when things crumbled on my end. But otherwise, for all of those issues that I had before we went live with my computers, my network, freaking out, then I'm really happy with how it all turned out, to be honest. We have some questions here because time is disappearing on us. I am not familiar with this, but Alan wants to know your thoughts on Zoom Bridge for Windows. Is that something you've heard of or used, Jonas?
Yeah, so Zoom Bridge for Windows, from my understanding, I haven't looked into it for a while. Basically, what it does is it spawns Electron windows and uses the web SDK from Zoom to give you like the feed and then has an NDI output. It's an okay solution, but for us, we are staying with Zoom Rooms NDI right now for the time being. Even though they have a lot of limitations, they have some advantages over ZoomISO still. There's some areas where Zoom Rooms are a little better than ZoomISO. But yeah, it works, but the web SDK, from my understanding, is still limited to 720p. And with Zoom Rooms NDI and ZoomISO, we can get those crisp and 1080p feeds, but I think is also a great question from the next one. What Zoom account we're actually using.
Yes, exactly. I think I've got them in a different order here, but hold on. Oh, there it is. Mark asking, are you using a Zoom Pro or Business account? Which is a good reminder to thank Guy at the DVE store for letting us use a business account, if I'm not mistaken on the term, for this call. So the account that I have through Guy at the DVE store lets me have 1080p meetings, and that's what we set up for this call. So each of the participants can send up to 1080p, and that's why I'm able to grab Jonas at 1080p instead of the subpar 720p that I personally pay for. So thanks again to Guy for that. I appreciate it. And thanks to Andy as well for helping me out to run the ZoomISO on an account so I can test it out, make some videos about it. So I appreciate that as well. The friends of the show here. And speaking of friends of the show, Mark also says, the Liminal guys, Adam Tau, work for Zoom now indeed. Soon Zoom will be knocking on your doors as well. Here's Record and Jonas. So we're waiting on those knocks to come our way.
I feel like Zoom would send us like a Zoom invite, and there's like, or just randomly, like John and I, we often hang out in a Zoom call. It would feel like suddenly it would just say, Zoom joined your Zoom call, something like that.
I'm just waiting for it to pop up here. Andre wants to know, John, how many participants can output with your UltraStudio 1 or more? So the UltraStudio HD Mini that I'm using, I would show it to you again, but it's on the floor. It only has one output available. So typically, well, it does have two SDI outputs, but typically they're used for graphics key and fill or video playback key and fill. But really, it only really has one proper video channel output. So I'm using that one output for Jonas's video. But I do have a DeckLink Duo in my PC, which could send, if I was to take that out, put it in an enclosure and attach it to this Mac, I could send up to 4 participants out of that. And you could also use with the, what is it called again? The Blackmagic 4K. They have an 8 output DeckLink card.
Quad 2.
Quad 2, that's it. I always forget what that's called.
I have the 8K Pro, and that's actually not a great card for this use case. It's a great card for a lot of other use cases. For this use case, for putting it into a Sonnet box, it's not great. But what's also, yeah, exactly. Someone in the chat is also saying it. It's a quad duo that has 8 outputs. One of the things to know, they do have the small DIN connector. So now you're no longer having the big SDI, but you need like small SDI to larger SDI connectors as well. So
Exactly.
something to keep in mind.
I have it here. It's the DeckLink Quad 2, isn't it? Isn't that it?
Yeah, it's the DeckLink Quad 2, which then suddenly has
Exactly.
like 8 outputs.
It has these tiny little DIN connectors, which it's a great card. But I don't have one of those, so I'm happy enough with the one I have.
They're sometimes also like really confusing to configure because like the
Really
outputs are like 1, 3, 5, 2. Like it's really confusing. And then like channels 1 and 3 go together, and 2 and 4, and it's a little confusing. But after you worked it out, they work pretty well.
And in fact, there is 9. If you counted really quickly there when I showed this, there are 9 connectors on this. So one of them is reference. I think it's the one that's closest to the connection at the bottom here, but without looking in the manual, you wouldn't know that. So it's actually not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's ref 1, 3, 2, 4, or whatever, so on. I've lost count already. So yeah, I've looked up the manual for that so many times because we did have one of those at the old place I worked. Yeah, called GeoMarks.
Like for the IBC show that we worked on together, we had one of those at the MCR, and like I think we spent 2 days just like, okay, if you disable channel 2, now you're in channel 1. No, you need to disable channel 2, which uses connector 3. And like, it is really confusing, and you need to disable the right ones to get like key fill out of it. And it's a fun.
That's the other side of it. If you configure in the video setup tool some of the settings for that DeckLink, and then you open that DeckLink up in vMix or even in ZoomISO, which warns you, you can't actually override the settings. You need to make sure that you've set them up properly in the other app. We're getting in a rabbit hole here. Lindhager says, haven't used ZoomISO, but using Teams hardware out through a DeckLink card works really great, and you can get ISO audio for each participant. Yeah, that's Teams have had that for a long, like more than a year now. Maybe it was a year ago or so whenever they announced that, which is really cool. I'm really happy that the Zoom side of things is catching up. I would love to see it more incorporated in like the main application. There's much more to it than that, I'm sure, but it would be really cool to see that that whole ecosystem evolve even more. But it's already come a long way since Luminal have been acquired by Zoom. Here's one from Aaron asking, does it work with the small UltraStudio monitor? I believe it does. Have you tested it with that, or do you know?
I haven't tested it, but since it uses the same SDK, it should work.
Yeah, it should work. There you go. It should work. You heard it here. So thanks for that. Coming back a little bit here, Morton says, since we are in Europe, which both Jonas, I, and Morton are, aren't you worried about GDPR or other privacy issues with Zoom? Personally, no. Whenever I work for a client, they've already decided all that stuff. If they're worried about Zoom, maybe they'll use Teams, and then we can use Teams. But anybody I work for, I don't bring the Zoom account. They usually have one, and I can just sort of hook into that. For my shows like this, I'm not worried at all about that stuff. I've got a good quality account, and I'm happy enough giving away Jonas's details on his behalf and my details, so I'm not that worried. But I know you do a lot of stuff with Zoom, Jonas. Is that something you're worried about?
So in talking to a lot of the privacy activists and people that actually work within this, GDPR can be an issue, but you can almost always solve it if you want. One of the things we've realized is like, yes, you can use Zoom in a GDPR compliant way. There's, for example, the churches in Germany, what they did is they used a Zoom on-prem connector and put it in their cloud, which is sounds a little crazy, but after you think about it, it's pretty cool because then all the video traffic stays within Germany and applies to that rules. Often it's not about GDPR, but it's about we don't want to use the tool, and then they just bring up GDPR. But there are valid concerns about it. The BSE, the German institute that deals with security, also has certified to a certain degree of security, so like from a security aspect, it should be pretty good. But honestly, like if you use Teams, I don't think you need to be too concerned about GDPR with Zoom. Everything can be set up in a way that it makes work. And if your GDPR person actually wants to make it work, there are ways to make it work.
I couldn't agree
That's
more.
what I would say. Yeah.
There's always a way, or they'll let you know very fast if there's not a way to make that happen. Time disappeared quickly, Jonas, but I wanted just to touch really quick, since we've talked so much about Zoom. I saw, excuse me, I saw yesterday that you launched a open source Zoom. Is it open source? Zoom?
Yes, it is open source.
So ZoomOSCJS. Have I got the name right?
Yes.
Cool.
I really I'm horrible at names, so I just put something together and decided that's it. So what I built is, so ZoomOSC only communicates, ZoomOSC and ZoomISO only communicates over OSC right now. And that's it's not the idealist for me to work with that in scripts. So what I've built is this little open source and free to use library called ZoomOSCJS. Probably should rename it to ZoomOSC/ZoomISO.js, but
even better name.
It will do for now. And the cool thing about it, it uses the event-based structure of Node.js to then deal with all the events and what's happening. And it uses TypeScript behind the hand, so you have typing. So one really cool thing, I have a little demo here. So this is actually a project that we used for one of our clients, where the question was, hey, can we bring the question from a webinar into a meeting? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then I looked into it and built this thing. And then I realized I might as well be cool to build a library around it. So what you can do is you have two ZoomOSC versions. And then every time there's a new user, you also add a listener to ask a question. And then when they ask a question, you let everyone at the meeting know. It's really cool. I really enjoy working on this. And since it's open source, everyone can help me and remove some of, I know there's a lot of spelling errors in there, for example. So if someone wants to go through and fix some of the spelling errors, you're more than welcome to do. And I know that it's really cool because you can build custom behavior into Zoom, like with the breakout rooms, with ZoomISO, ZoomOSC. You could do stuff like, hey, as soon as someone joins the meeting, pin them to a ZoomISO output, unless they're called team something or bot something. You can build really cool behavior into it. And I hope that there's going to be cool stuff built with it.
Cool. I wanted to get that in at the end there so people can play around with it a little bit. And then maybe next time, if you want to join again on the live show, I'm more than happy to have you. We can get people's thoughts on it. Maybe they've got some feedback. Maybe I've got some feedback and I'll have a chance to use it a little bit myself, which is cool. But yeah, time's run out. Thanks so much, Jonas, for coming by. Anything, I mean, you've been mentioning all your softwares today, but any last things to plug?
Not really. I really, really enjoy working with people on ZoomOSC. So if you have a thing where you're Zoom should do it this way and maybe we can automate it for that, it's really cool. Join the Discord and start a discussion in there as well. I'm also on John's Discord all the time, it feels. Yeah.
That's where I spend a lot of my time as well, so don't feel bad about it. It's all good. Thanks for coming by. Thanks to Andy again from ZoomISO for hooking me up with that test license to give ZoomISO a go. I think it's worked really well, except for the issues that I managed to introduce rather than the tool itself. So I can work on those and iron out my process a little bit. Thanks again to Guy at the DV store for the Zoom account as well, so we can get everything working in crisp 1080p, which is always excellent. Thanks for that. Thanks to all of you for watching, and thanks to all of the supporters of the channel as well. I have them all here on the credits. Big thanks to all of them coming in here. Jeremy, Revolutionary Lightboards, Marlon, and Cloud Bedrock as well. I guess I'll see you on the next live stream coming out of the studio here. I'm sure I'll do a better job then when the time comes. But until then, bye-bye. Thanks for watching. I'll see you. I don't know what button I'm going to press.